Welcome back in for another Sabres Draft Show presented by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. With Marty, I'm Brian, and 3 picks for Buffalo in the first round this year. We discussed at number 9 some of the possibilities thanks to our analysts that are really deep into the prospect pool. They were all forwards in our first episode. Let's continue along that vein. Obviously, the Sabres have an awful lot of options based on what they have compiled in their stable already and how this draft plays out, because it just doesn't seem like there are guaranteed selections in the top 15, which means they could have eyes wide open by the time 16 rolls around.
There's a lot of players available mid-first round that either their stock went way up and they went from like 35th in mid-season ranking to the top 15, or some guys that their stocks have dropped and they were ranked in the top 5 and all of a sudden find themselves past number 10. So that is where it's really interesting. I'll tell you this though, even though you may be the second pick in the first round for the Sabres, you're still a first-round pick, as I was. Not the number 1 pick of the Sabres in 1995, but I went 16th overall after Jim McKee, but I still was a first-rounder.
I love that you took pride and did that without prompting, because you know we would have got there eventually. But if you're talking about pride, real quick, when you know that this pick is part of the Jack Eichel trade, is there anything internally that the group is thinking, we have to absolutely crush this?
Okay, so I was part of the Alexander McGillney trade. So I always felt like, like McGillney, pretty good player. Also there was a Michael Pekka that was part of that trade, and so he took a lot of the heat off of me. But no, when you're part of a trade and a significant trade like that, you know that you're always going to be associated with that situation.
All right, we'll see what Kevin Adams and company are able to pull out of the draft at number 16. But as we continue to get more about the potential players, let's start with someone from Czechia in Yuri Klich.
He can shoot the puck. He's smart. He's competitive. He kills penalties. You know, he plays in so many different spots in your lineup, and he's skating. And you know, I've always liked Yuri. It wasn't until I went to the U18 that I just said, enough. He's that good. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I don't think he'll go in the top 10. He might not even go in the top 20. All I know is this: he's going to be better than a lot of players that are selected ahead of him.
I think Yuri Klich has put himself, with his under-18 World Championship performance, has put himself firmly in the first-round discussion. MVP of the tournament, 9 goals, power play weapon, has an NHL one-timer, really good offensive instincts. You know, he's a guy that could be a center, could be a wing, has good size, really shoots the puck extremely well, and then has these offensive instincts. Away from the puck, he's okay. I think he competes and everything is fine there. It's not something that's going to be a strength, but it's a guy where you say, hey, we have a chance to land a legit goal scorer here, a guy that, you know, we can let develop a little bit.
And Klich is one of those players that stock kept rising after mid-season rankings, and he never quits on a play. Works extremely hard, and that's why the scouts really love what he brings to the table.
On to the first of many that will fall into the category described most often as the Russian factor. And there are many layers to it nowadays as we enter into this draft in Montreal. Danila Yurov finds himself in that mix.
The strength of Yurov's game is that he can play the power game, he can drive to the net, he can create around the net, but he'll also drift to the outside and knife a pass through the slot and play that sort of finesse playmaking game from the perimeter. So that blend of the power finesse game is what makes Yurov so intriguing.
He's a guy who around the league everybody agrees is a top 10 player on pure talent and ability. One of the most skilled players in the draft. He can skate well, he can play it both ways. He's an absolutely great player. His passport, though, will probably have him end up being selected much lower than he would have gone on pure talent.
This guy's an offensive dynamo, and I think if you kind of go back and think about your stereotypical Russian player, where they're highly skilled, they're fast, quick, play the in-tight game, you know, good in one-on-one situations, can score off the rush. He's that type of guy.
If we don't have this situation with Russia and the concern over Russian players, he would absolutely be in this top 7. He is a powerful winger. He's incredibly smart. He's a north-south player, but he also has some of that east-west skill that is really attractive. So I think he's the type of guy, again, where if the risk allows him to drop to 16, I'd have a hard time passing him there.
as we see with a lot of Russians forward, Yurov is a right winger that shoots left, so he plays on his off wing. His production at the junior level, great. At the KHL level, not so much. So again, tough to assess where he's at right now.
But easy, I think, to assess because we know the name, so maybe there's a little bit of pedigree in that sense, but more so because he's played at the program, the U.S. National Team Development Program. Jimmy Snuggerud, as we zero in on what he's done to date.
Jimmy Snuggerud has an NHL caliber shot right now, and he's also 6'2" and I believe 215 pounds. He's got to improve the skating a little bit. He's going to go to college and again have that opportunity to get bigger, get stronger, but that NHL shot has scouts. Is very attractive.
His presence around the net and the ability to score goals with tips, got good hand-eye coordination, rebound ability. So he's a guy who operates in that 15-foot radius around the net, and that's where he's successful. But can also score from distance, but I like what he does around the net.
As somebody that's got an unbelievable release, you know, he gives me a little bit of a blend of Blake Wheeler, Philip Forsberg. He shoots the puck like Forsberg, but he can make plays like Blake Wheeler. And those are two powerful guys.
And this is where we start feeling old, when sons of players that have played in the National Hockey League get drafted and eventually play in the National Hockey League. And how about somebody that knows what the Buffalo Sabres fans and the community and everything is all about? So Snuggerud definitely fits that bill.
Yeah, Jimmy's the son of former U.S. Olympian and former Sabre in Dave, who joined you on the pregame show earlier this year. I was thrilled to know that he still had a pretty deep interest in the Sabres organization, and I didn't know that he was captain at the University of Minnesota, and that's where Jimmy's planning to attend. I also didn't know that Dave finished 8th in Calder voting the year he started in the NHL. The guy who won, believe it or not, much older than Michael Bunting, Sergei Makarov, was 31 when he won the Calder. Next in line after Makarov in voting that year, Modano, Roenick, Brindamore, and Recchi. So, yeah.
And that's why they changed the rule, because now you can't be 31.
It's made. Jimmy's a great personality. Really curious to see where it plays out for him. Another name that has been on this draft's radar for quite some time would be Connor Geekie.
At his size, has really good hands and vision. He makes kind of smaller, skilled guys plays in a bigger man's body. So he's a little bit of a unique prospect in that right. Probably like to see him shoot it a little bit more, but a really well-rounded player.
He's a big center, smart, high-end hockey sense, some of the best hockey sense among centers in this draft. You know, and he put up numbers this year. The thing about him is he's not a very good skater, and that is a problem for a lot of teams. And so if he's there at 16, I think his hockey sense is one of those things that really makes up for any lack of foot speed. It's something that will take time. I don't know that it's necessarily completely fixable, but I also don't think that he's so not a good enough skater to not make it at the NHL level.
Well, Geekie was ranked 5th at the NHL draft list this year. So if he drops to 16, we know you're getting a high talent guy that maybe some teams don't really like or scouts don't like, but he was coached by James Patrick, so there's got to be a lot of character in his play.
Marty, nice segue. We're going to zero in from James Patrick to the first defenseman we're talking about in our draft previews. That would be Kevin Korczynski out of Seattle in the Western League.
This year, Kevin Korczynski scored 61 assists. It's the first time a defenseman in the Western Hockey League scored 60-plus assists since 1989-90. He's got that size that really, he can pound guys down low in the defensive zone, and then once he gets pucks, is able to retrieve, transition real well.
6'2" defenseman who can skate. He provides legitimate offense. He's active and he's highly skilled. There's a little bit of defensive stuff that you're going to have to kind of rein in a little bit, but he's really young, so you're hoping he's going to mature with time and become a really good top 4 defenseman in the NHL.
Korczynski's game has gone like this. The one thing that stands out about him is his ability to manage the offensive blue line. His feet are magic, his look-offs, his deception, ability to get pucks through, create offense. That's kind of his calling card. So he's one of those guys that you would consider the new age defenseman who uses a great skating foundation to produce offense.
You don't often hear speed and puck moving ability when it comes to a 6'2", 190-pound defenseman. But Korczynski has all of that, even though he's still young, but filling up his frame.
Yeah, and it was really nice for him to build out his resume with the extended playoff run that Seattle has had. He is second ranked among North American defensemen from Central Scouting. Pavel Mintyukov was just ahead of him on that list. Now, in recent years at the 16 position, we've seen Chychrun, Barzal, Tom Wilson. Of course, in Sabres history, the last one to go at 16 was Nikita Zadorov. Would you be happy with someone of his ilk? How do you view that?
Yeah, absolutely. A big physical defenseman. And this is where you start making different picks on needs, right? Because there's many different options that you like in the middle of the first round. So maybe you go for a defenseman, depending on what you draft at number 9.
As we pointed out, this pick is a result of the deal with Vegas that brought Alex Tuck and Peyton Krebs here, Jack Eichel the other way. Next up for Buffalo will be the late first round selection available to them because of the Sam Reinhart deal with Florida. Stay tuned for that in our draft preview presented by Coca-Cola Zero Sugar.